Welcome to the Everyday Veteran Podcast. The mission of this podcast is to educate, motivate, and inspire you and your families to live your best life post-military service. I'm your host, Marine veteran Pat Keplinger. Tonight's episode, we're honored to have Air Force veteran Michael Hill. Michael is going to talk to us tonight about growing up in the South and really having no direction in life, and then his decision to join the military. After his time in the military, he talks about his law enforcement career, and then what he's doing now in Texas to help veterans who suffer from PTSD. All right, welcome, Michael. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Pat.
Appreciate it. So tell us where you're coming from right now.
I am in Conroe, Texas. And in case you don't know where Conroe is, I am about 40 miles north of Houston, Texas.
How's the weather right now? Is it pretty hot?
It has been, but it's also been muggy. We're running probably about 70% humidity, no rain.
Yeah.
But it's fine.
And how long have you been there?
2 months.
2 months. And so where'd you come from before that?
Palm Springs, California.
So big change.
Yes.
Big change. After 2 months, do you think you have a good idea if you're going to like it or not?
Oh, yeah. I grew up in Greer, South Carolina, which is in the northwest corner of the state. And the weather, the humidity, the area, it's very green here. I'm surrounded. Granted, I only have one tree in my yard, but I'm surrounded by lots of trees and forests and such. So it's a lot like where I grew up. And yeah, I'm 2 months here. I'm like, okay, I'm home.
Yeah. Yeah. The East Coast is so beautiful, but you have to fend for yourself when it comes to getting an AC and that temperature in the summertime and the humidity. It's not fun.
It's interesting. Growing up in South Carolina, my grandparents lived with us, and my grandmother controlled the AC. She kept it at 65.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Well, it's cold. It's very cold. I keep my house here at either 75 or 77. And when I was in Palm Springs, 77. It was perfect temperature for me.
Mm-hmm.
So unless I had a lot of people in the house, then it never went below 75.
Yeah. So let's talk about your childhood and where you grew up. I mean, you mentioned South Carolina, but any siblings? Tell us about your family.
I am the youngest of 4 kids, 3 boys, 1 girl. We were all born in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. Mm-hmm. My dad met my mother when he was out at the Coast Guard Island in Alameda for training, and he proposed to my mother through the mail. They got married. To say that it was the best marriage for anybody is an understatement. It wasn't. Mm-hmm. And they divorced, and my dad got custody of us, and he moved us to South Carolina, and that was in 1975.
Oh, okay.
So I was 9 years old, I think, but I hadn't turned 10 yet. Mm-hmm. So we moved into Greer, South Carolina. He worked in Greenville, which is the next big city over. And we were there, and in some respects, it was a culture shock. Going from not knowing Southern culture and Southern mannerisms to being thrown into it. That you hear people all the time say yes or no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And then you hear the draw, like the word you, Y-O-U. There are some people that have so many U's on. It's like, what are you doing? And, as a kid, you just pick up on it and go on. And I can remember in elementary school being teased because I talked funny. And my response was, no, you talk funny.
So you maintained your California accent back to South Carolina?
I did my best, but over time, I think, from experience that over time, when you're around certain groups of people, that you pick up mannerisms or voice inflections, and that becomes part of your vernacular.
Yeah.
So saying yes sir, no sir, even after leaving South Carolina back in 1986, it was very much part of my life. And where I'm at in Texas, I have kids. We're talking 3 and 4 year olds that say yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. In California, I said yes ma'am to a lady, to a woman. There's a difference. Anyone outside of the South, if you say lady to, they consider it to be prim and proper. But in the South, it's a sign of respect. And I had this lady go, "I am not a lady, I'm a woman." I'm like, okay, whatever. And it just, that's when I said I feel so at home here, because I've got great neighbors. We just, I'm learning my neighbors, they're learning me. And, it's just the amount of politeness. I mean, here's an example. I was at Costco, and now the word is humble, like you're being humble, but there's humble Texas. But Texans pronounce it as humble. They don't say the letter H. And I had bought my Traeger grill. I didn't realize it was as heavy as it was. And there was a dad with his 2 boys there. And I said, "Excuse me, sir, do you mind if I ask your boys to help me get this in the truck?" He goes, "Not at all." And they're like, "What you need?" And these are boys like 12 and 13 years old. They were the politest kids around. And I even told Dad, after we got it loaded, I said, "Thank you for teaching your boys manner," not children, but your boys manner or mannerisms, because to me, it's very comforting to get that respect as somebody who's in his mid-50s. So. But I also addressed the boys personally when I said, I didn't. I said I would say boys, but you guys are actually young men, and I want to say thank you for helping me. I greatly appreciate it, and know that I'm grateful for what you've done. Now, I don't know how many times these boys or young men hear that, but it needs to be said. And being in the military, it was easy for that to roll off my tongue to say yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. And so that's where I'm at. I'm very happy. It does get humid here. There's some days I've taken 3 showers, but it beats 125-degree weather that I've had in my backyard in Palm Springs.
Good. I'm glad you're getting settled and liking it. I think it's really important that we, when we experience children, young men and women who are polite and show us respect, just to say thank you for that. So in their minds, it tells them, I'm doing the right thing, right? It's that positive reinforcement. I think it's awesome. So
I mean, go ahead. I'm
sorry. No, go ahead.
One day I was walking my dogs, and there were 2 African-American little girls on their bicycles, and their older brother was running behind them. And of course, I got my dogs off the sidewalk so they could get through. And they're like, "Hi." And I'm like, "Hi back." And then I met their mother, and her name was Crystal. And I said, "Crystal, are those your kids?" She goes, "Yes." I said, "Let me tell you about them." I said, "It's all good." I said, the amount of respect that they gave me when just by saying hi put me on top of the world. And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I come from California. Kids and even adults are not that polite." And she's like, "Thank you."
That's awesome.
The word "thank you," 2 words, has such powerful impact upon people. And I mean, I was at Costco, and there's a guy scraping the floors, and I just said, "Thank you for keeping the floors clean." He looked at me, he's like, no one's ever said thank you.
Very powerful.
So it just means a difference. And, it, again, going back to the military, it wasn't hard for me to do that in the military either. So
let's talk about your service. What made you join the military, and what branch, and then why'd you choose that branch?
I joined the Air Force under the delayed enlistment program in 1986 or 85. I went in February of 86. I had to get away from my father. I had to grow up. I had no self-esteem. I knew from a young age that I was gay, but I didn't know how to deal with it. And seeing my father kick my two older brothers who were also gay out of the house and the trouble they went through, I said, I don't want this.
And your father knew.
And I thought by joining,
your father knew that you were all gay?
Well, he didn't know about me for a while. Until my older brother outed me. But before then, it was just, I wasn't happy. I didn't know what I wanted to do. My dad wanted me to go to Clemson University, and he was always on me about my school grades in high school. And I was an okay student. And one day I looked at him and I said, Dad, you don't have the money and I don't have the grades. And I know that hurt him. And I wasn't trying to hurt him, but it was more of a reality check for him to say, okay, what am I going to do? And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go check out the Air Force, because my self-esteem was it was at the bottom of the barrel. I didn't have any. I didn't have any self-confidence. And I thought, if there's any service I can get through, it's going to be the Air Force. And I went in and they offered me medical administration jobs. And I think either in December of 85 or January of 86, I finally told my dad that I was going to the military, which I was surprised he was happy about. All of his uncles on his mother's side were veterans in World War II. I mean, they served. I have an interview on YouTube for one of my uncles that was, unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago, but I was able to get his story on video. It's not the greatest interview. It's about 2 hours long, but I really want to start researching his history and see if I can't somehow write a book about it, because it makes a great story.
And what branch of the service were they all in? You said your dad was in the Coast Guard, right? And what about the rest?
Yeah, he went into the Coast Guard. He was a reserve, so I think he just did, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4 years. I'm not sure how long. He didn't talk about it, though. That was the thing. All of his uncles were in the Army, I believe. I know that the last Uncle Herbert, who passed away a couple of years ago, was a nose gunner on, was it the B-24s? I can't remember which plane it was, but he was a nose gunner.
Wow.
And his hearing was so bad, hearing aids would not help him. So he would get excited, and all you hear was, oh! I don't mean to make fun of him, but it just, he couldn't hear himself. The hearing aids didn't help. But he would, when we were alone without his daughter-in-law around, he would tell me stuff. And he said the greatest thing he remembers about every mission was, it wasn't getting back on the ground. It was at the debriefing, they got a shot of whiskey and a cigarette. And he said, I didn't care about the cigarette. I just wanted a shot of whiskey.
That's a good reward.
Yeah.
Wow. So you joined the Air Force, and you said medical service, medical administration. And then how long did you enlist for?
I did the 6-year enlistment. And to my detriment, being that go-getter of always trying to do the best and present myself that I can do most anything that I set my mind to, that can actually backfire at different times. During my time coming out of tech school with the Air Force, I was assigned to administrative services at David Grant Medical Center at Travis in Northern California.
I know Travis.
And coming out of tech school and going straight into admin services was unheard of. Usually you did admissions and dispositions. But I got put in admin services, and I quickly excelled on learning the job, doing it. I had officers like one officer, Marjorie Coburn, she was a major, came in one day. I still remember this day, Patrick, that she came in and she said, Airman Hill. I'm like, it's Mike. And she said, Mike, I need help. Yes, ma'am. What do you need? She said, we have this formulary for cancer that we're putting together for the hospital. I need help in typing it. I'm like, give it here. I said, check with me tomorrow. Did my 8. I hit the gate, meaning I did my 8 hours. Everything was done. We closed the office. I went back to my dorm room. I had dinner, changed clothes. I came back up. This is when we had the Tandy computer with the 8.5-inch floppy disk. And I did all the changes for her. I typed everything and got everything done. But, you know, that's part of the excel. I was Airman of the Month, Airman of the Quarter, Senior Enlisted Advisors Award. And because of that, I got moved into personnel. There's a reason why I'm telling you all this. I took over all the officer affairs programs, which we had over 50% failure rates.
Wow.
Because the gal doing it wasn't doing her job. I came in and just like, okay, we're getting this done. I gave the respect to the officers that I needed stuff from, but I didn't put up with their BS. I remember one officer I called and said, sir, I need you to come down and sign these forms. I'll get there when I can. No, sir, you have until such date at time to get it done. Otherwise, I send it back to base, and then you're going to have to answer to base. They were down it. So we got it down below 10%. Base was happy. We had a health services readiness inspection, which is your training inspection. We failed. We failed that inspection. By all rights, the hospital should have been shut down. But you can't shut down David Grant because not only is it a huge retiree population coming in, but you've got everybody coming from the Asian theater coming into Travis. And who knows where else. So we're still operating, but I got moved into medical readiness, and we're working 6 days a week, 12-hour days. And I was tired. So the disadvantage of being that go-getter and being good at what you do is that sometimes you end up with this jobs like I had in medical readiness. So it was a good job, but I had a supervisor that was a royal piece of work.
It's tough to work for someone like that. Yeah. So how long were you at Travis for?
My entire time, 9 years, active and reserves.
Oh, okay. So you did active first and then reserves for how many years?
Yes. 6 years or 7 years reserves.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Part of that is what they call ARPC, which is Air Reserve. I forgot what PC stands for. Basically, it's in active status. If you've completed your commitment, but you still have time left on your current enlistment, they could put you ARPC so you don't have to show up.
Oh, got it. Okay.
And that's what I ended up doing. So
how was that transition from the military? Well, it's because you were active and then to the reserves and then into civilian life. How was that transition?
Difficult.
How so?
In the military, you're very structured. You know, like in the Air Force, I know what time I had to be in the office. And there was one day in my entire career in the Air Force that I was late because I just didn't hear my alarm. And my sergeant called and said, are you coming to work? I'm like, ooh, okay, I'll be there as quickly as I can. And I mean, I got up in the office. I'm dressed in my Air Force blues without my jacket, and I'm sweating. And I'm like, I apologize. He's like, don't worry about it. You know, you're fine. But going from military to civilian life, we all have that structure that we want or we desire. And unfortunately, in civilian life, a lot of that structure is not there. People also don't know how to take us because we're very structured.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know what has to be done. I had a job here in the last year, which I asked a simple question, and the fellow employee went to the owners and said, Michael's micromanaging. No, it was seeing, was this job done?
Mm-hmm.
And that was a difficult thing.
Mm-hmm.
And back in 1988 in the San Francisco Bay Area, I had a very difficult time getting a job after coming off active duty because you had the Oakland Army base, you had Treasure Island,
Mm-hmm.
and so many employers had problems with the military that they didn't want to hire anybody who was military. So, that was the biggest issue that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not having, I thrive on structure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I like to cook, and there are things that you have to do first, second, third, and so on to get the recipe to come out. And that's the structure that I thrive
Mm-hmm.
on.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't understand that. I shouldn't say don't. There are a lot of people that don't understand
Mm-hmm.
it, but there are people that do.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's safe, right? I mean, it's coming from your background before the military and going in, and that's probably what you've been seeking for so long, is that structure and that safe
well, I mean,
space.
I had structure before I went in the
Hmm.
military. I mean, my dad and we lived 5 miles outside of the city limits of Greer. We were on 15, what they call dog leg acres. Basically, it was kind of like the shape of a golf club. The golf head, and then and then your golf, whatever they call that thing that you hold on to, the golf, whatever. And we raised game birds. So every morning before I went to high school, or even was junior high or high school, I had to go down and make sure that the birds were fed and they had plenty of water for the day. And when I got home by 5 or 6 o'clock at night, I had to do the same thing. When we were hatching our own birds, because we collect eggs, quail eggs every day, or even pheasant eggs, I had to go down and monitor the incubators to see what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot of work, and especially when you've got 200 or 300 baby quail coming out, you've got to get them out of the incubator into a pen that they can survive on.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to make sure, again, they have food and water. They got the heat lamps because they're just like that big around. So the structure before I went into the military was actually instilled in by my father. So that's the good thing.
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
So
easy transition then.
Yeah, it's funny that there were things that stick in my brain, and I remember I got into Lackland Air Force Base at like 2:30 in the morning, and we got into our bunks, and then got some sleep, got up, got breakfast, came back, and the guy in the bunk next to me, who was like 6 foot something tall, he's crying like a 2-year-old. And he's like, and I remember him saying, I made the biggest mistake in my life.
First day.
I should not have joined. And it's like, dude, you're going to get through this. Just have faith, And he goes, why are you not so worried about it? I'm like, I get to sleep. I get some rest. I don't have to do anything except what the TI wants, I was like,
yeah.
So that was the funny thing about basic was I get to rest.
Do you have any other? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What's that?
I was going to ask if
ahead.
you had any other really good memories that stuck out of your service.
Graduating basic military training was a big one. I wish my parents would have been there. Unfortunately, they didn't have the resources to get to Lackland. Coming home and seeing my grandmother and grandfather after graduating tech school. my grandmother basically and grandfather basically raised me because my dad was working all the time. And I learned to cook from my grandmother and I learned to garden from my grandfather. So they were very much in my life. So seeing my grandmother's face when I walked in after tech school. Sorry. It is probably one of the greatest memories. Because when her last brother died a couple years ago, I had interviewed him and then I said, I'll be out in February. And this was probably, 2 years ago, I think, 3 years ago. And he had died in January. Well, his kids or grandkids who knew that I was coming out never notified me. And we were looking through, he had saved the letters that my grandmother had written him. And my great uncle was a prisoner of war. And she said, I always worry about you. And my grandmother knew that I was fine, but she always worried about me. She worried about all of us, honestly. But when I walked in, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
When I walked in after coming out of tech school, and she started crying, it was like, I'm home. I'm here. So, that was a great memory. Other memories outside. Sorry.
That's a very sweet memory. That's a great memory, though.
Sorry, I have moments like this because I'm the last one in my family that's alive. I have buried my entire family. So, all right. Other happy moments. All right, happy thoughts. Senior Airman Below the Zone, Airman of the Month, Airman of the Quarter. And when I got Senior Airman Below the Zone, which is, for those that don't know, is a 6-month accelerated promotion from Airman First Class to Senior Airman. So there were 6 or 7 of us that were promoted ahead of time. I was the last one called. They made me wait. And the people that I worked with, I wish I could remember all their names. They were true leaders. They were not bosses. I was not in their chain of command, but I worked with them to achieve different things, and they knew what I was capable of. And because of that, they kept pushing me, and that's how Senior Airman Below the Zone came out. I mean, they were like, you've got this. And just their emotional support of saying, you got this, was a huge factor for me, for somebody who had 0 self-confidence. There was one Major Marjorie Coburn. I don't know if she's alive or not. I wish she was. I would like to find her at some point if she's still alive. She was the major doing the formulary for the cancer program. And, I would do anything for that woman because of the way she treated people. And she was, in my eyes, a true leader. So that was one of the greatest points. Those are some of the greatest things about my military career. So
those are great memories to have. Yeah,
they are.
So you had that structure, you had the discipline, you had success. Now you have self-confidence, and you're transitioning out, but you're facing civilian society that is not really wanting you. What did you do after you got out?
My first job out of the military was working at Baker Square as a host. I tried my hand at a waiter's position, and I wasn't very good at it. And then they transferred me over to being the host, which was fine. But that job in itself didn't last long because I got accused of stealing $100, which I didn't steal, and they were covering for one of the managers who was stealing.
Oh.
So, but you know, I think one of the greatest things that has been with me since even before the military and carried through the military and then into my career in law enforcement is the fact that I don't care who you are, I'll still say yes or no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And if I get a feeling that you don't care for it, then I don't say it.
So after,
I hope that answers.
No, it does. Yeah. So after that, is that when you went into law enforcement?
Let me think. That was, I got off active duty in '88, and I did various jobs. I mean, I worked in geology. I worked as in the restaurant business. I worked in a computer company as a receptionist. And it wasn't until 1990 that I got the job with the San Francisco Sheriff's Department as a cadet. I should have been hired July 1st, but California was going through one of its, we're not going to pass the budget until this or that happens. And I got hired in September of '90 as a cadet working county parole, which was a good job. I gained a lot of experience. And then in January of '91, I was transferred over to what they call an 8304 deputy sheriff position with the San Francisco Sheriff's Department. I was in that position for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then the Gulf War started, and I got activated in my reserve unit.
So did the San Francisco Sheriff Department, did they hold your position while you were gone, or did they say, you know, we got to let you go?
They held it, but I was hired as a temporary in the beginning, which all of us were. And it was very stressful not knowing if I had a job when I got off active duty. But luckily, the city was playing this numbers game with their open requisitions for permanent positions and such. But it came out that I did have a position, and May 11th, I was made permanent. However, I didn't return to work on May 11th. It was after that date that I got released from the Gulf War.
Oh, okay. And during the Gulf War, did you deploy forward, or were you back here in the States supporting? What was your role?
No, I was with the 12th Contingency Hospital, and the 12th is no longer around. They were absorbed by the 349th Military Airlift Wing at Travis, which, sorry, has probably changed by now. Being that I knew a lot of stuff, I knew how to get stuff done. I knew who to go to. My unit hid me from base. You know, they didn't talk about me, and whenever my name came up, they changed subjects real quick. Finally, one day, base was looking at my chief and said, "Where's Michael?" And he was like, "Well, we got him over here." And my unit gave me the option, either go to England or stay back at Travis. And I decided to stay back at Travis because my sergeant or staff sergeant was a programmer for the government. So we were working in their IT department at David Grant. We developed what do you call it? A time analysis program, basically. So when somebody called in and said, "I got a problem with computers," so it was a time study, basically. We also kept IT running and did a lot of other stuff. So that's why during the Gulf War, I stayed back at Travis. And just because I stayed at Travis doesn't mean I didn't work. I was working basically 6 days a week. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's a big misconception of those that don't go forward. There's the remain behind element, and you're working because you just lost half the force. And it's a lot of times it's day on, stay on. So yeah,
yeah,
it's a lot of work. Yeah. So when you got released back off active duty from the Gulf War, you went back to the sheriff department, and
yes.
then what did that look like? How many years did you spend with them?
I was forcibly retired in 2012.
Okay,
So it gave me 21 years and 22 days with them.
it's a long time.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Yeah.
It had its good moments. I had a great career, I had a good career, and I had a bad career.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody who says that they've never had a bad day, I'm going to look at them with a little bit of suspicion,
Mm-hmm.
because we know that everybody has a bad day,
Right.
so
Right.
or bad experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
so when taking that discipline and all the things that you had growing up and then through the military, did that serve you really well in law enforcement? Were there a lot of things that you took with you from that you learned in the military?
yeah, I mean, there was stuff that I knew ahead of time before the military, and then certainly with the military, it was learn the job, learn it as best you can, accept responsibility for when you make a mistake, and again, do the best you can every day.
Mm-hmm.
Be that team player, but also stand up for, when, here's an example of not being that team player. One day I was in the back of the jail. This was like 2010 or 2009. And the deputy was taking inmates off of administrative segregation. So they lost privileges, whether it's visiting or whatever. They're on lockup. They're not to get any privilege whatsoever. And he was taking them into the jail to play basketball with them. And if they lost at basketball, then they lost their commissary, their lunch, or their dinner. Well, that's against rules. And one of my fellow deputies said, go do a round, which means you go and make sure that everything's okay and you sign off. And I said, no, I won't. And they said, why not? I said, because if excuse my language here, the shit's hitting the fan, I'm not the one who's going to take the fall. He knows what he's doing wrong. And because of that, I was labeled as not being a team player. Well, I'm not taking responsibility for your mistakes when you won't take responsibility. And that was, like with the military, I took responsibility, but I also learned how to deal with like some of the officers that didn't want to take responsibility. And, you learn who you go to. So,
so you retired from the police department, going back when you left the military, did you ever go to the VA or look at benefits from the VA side?
Yes.
You did.
Luckily, I had gone to the VA right after I got off active duty, which opened up my case. Now, I had not used the VA for a number of years, but one of the reasons why I got forcibly retired was that I got sick and went on chemo, and I went to the VA to. Sorry, my dog's old over here. I went to the VA and to see about getting in for medical treatment and stuff like that, and I'm glad I did. But the VA's been a headache ever since.
How so?
Well, I have a claim against them. I have a disease called pulmonary sarcoidosis. Starts in the lymph system, and sarcoid will hit any organ of the body, including the skin. And mine hit my right lung and my central nervous system. At David Grant, at the old David Grant, when you'd walk out the back of the hospital, you walk down this corridor, to your right was the incinerator. Well, upstairs to the left was my office. So they're burdened 24/7. Anything and everything. Excuse me. We're talking the red medical bags. So they are burning everything 24/7. All that goes up. That's south. Our office is north. The wind blows to the north.
Mm-hmm.
All that was coming back down to our office.
Mm-hmm.
And there's enough evidence to support the diagnosis of sarcoid and everything. Unfortunately, the VA, in their infinite wisdom, the Janesville office has taken responsibility for what's going on with me, but they can't give a rating. And they won't forward it off to somebody else who can. So the VA, I've said very clearly a number of times, let me in there, because I will assemble a group of people. We'll clean house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Guaranteed. The first thing I do is raise the pay on everybody because they don't pay the greatest. But when we have 22, on average, 22 veterans committing suicide a day because they can't get the help they need, something has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care who's in the White House, but the old expression of shit or get off the pot needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because men and women, I got to be careful here. Men and women have put their lives on the line to protect this country, only to be shit upon by the VA.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me for my bluntness,
Mm-hmm.
but we all know that it's true. Like I was going at my brother, cancer runs in my family. My grandmother died from colon cancer. My brother died from colon cancer. The VA was going to do a colonoscopy. But the VA is mandated by the government to do a colonoscopy every single hour from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. What's the problem with that? If somebody takes longer than an hour, everybody gets pushed back. There's no time between patients whatsoever. They are mandated. That's the problem. So the VA, I'm not happy with. I'm fighting with them. You know, I've had an appeal since 2014. 7.5 years I've been fighting this. And there's no end in sight.
And it's still, the case is still open, right? They haven't closed it. Yeah. Yeah. Because I know that that's a big thing that, you know, working with veterans over the years, a lot of times they'll supposedly get notice that their claim is closed, and it never came to their house. They never received any notification. And if you don't do anything within that year period, then it's done. You know, so it's good that you know that it's still open and there's still chances.
We have an expression in the South. I'll slap you in the next week. Do you think that's what I want to do with a few people? You know, again, I don't care who's in the White House, but we need to start cleaning house in the VA. Yeah. There's things that we need to do to make it better for our veterans. Here's an example. Gulf War starts 20 years ago. Do you know a gal by the name of Gina Elise? She's there in Southern California. She does pinups for vets.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I know her. I mean, I think I still have her phone number. She is a beautiful woman in all aspects of a human being. And she started pinups for vets just thinking, oh, a year or two. But it's going on, 10, 15 years that she's doing it. It is really sad when she has to raise money to buy equipment to give to the VA hospitals because they can't get it.
Right.
What's the problem with that, Patrick? Our government is, I'm sorry, I'm not happy with our current administration. I wasn't happy with the past administration. And, you know, I have my good points and bad points about every administration. But when our current governmental administration is not giving the VA what they need to rehab these people, there's something wrong. But then you have the success stories coming out of the VA, like Travis Mills. He's a triple amputee. And look at what he's doing on the East Coast. You know, The man has no legs and no arms, or hands, I should say. I don't think he has any hands, but anyway, I may be wrong. But he's an amazing man at what he has been able to accomplish. So, you know, the VA needs to change.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got off on a tangent. I apologize.
No, it's good because, you know, I think for anybody that might be listening, you know, that has struggles with a VA, I think knowing that you're not alone in those struggles is huge, right? I mean, I talked to so many veterans who were just gonna, you know, especially with the Vietnam veterans, you know, their catchphrase, I don't want to say catchphrase, but what they would tell me all the time is deny, deny until we die, you know, and it's interesting because you wonder, where's the problem? Where exactly, you know, you go to the VA, I go to the VA, you know, quite a bit. And, you know, the people that I encounter are fellow veterans, right? And they care for, I feel like they care for me. There's a couple of people that might not care for, you know, everybody, but if they're caring for you and they're trying their best, where's the breakdown?
I can tell you exactly where it is. It's like any customer service. Now, you sent me a list of questions. Okay? This is our format, basically. We can go off of that because we know that. But somebody in the VA, that is what they have to follow. They have to follow what they are told they have to do. That's like if you call for customer service. They can't deviate. Quit reading the script. Get a brain cell to fire and realize this needs to be done. But they are not allowed to do that. That's the problem. When you got a veteran calling in who needs mental health, don't say, oh, well, we can get you in for 2 weeks. You need to be saying, where are you? And let me see where I can get you. In other words, the VA needs to get its head out of its ass. Excuse my language. Don't mean to offend anybody, but I'm going to tell you like it is. To say, we've got to do better. And when a veteran calls in for help, that is what they need. And that's where the VA is failing. And that's why, again, we have on average, 22 suicides a day. They said here lately it's gone down, which is good. But as somebody who has dealt with suicides, not only in the law enforcement aspect, but also my friends, I've had several friends commit suicide. I hope I don't offend anybody, but it's a total mind fuck. Excuse my language. That you wonder, what could I have done to save that person? And we all know that if somebody wants to do it, you can't. There's nothing you can do to save that person. They're going to do it if they want to. And, you know, it really gets to you. So I haven't given up on the VA yet. I've got somebody still in the Coachella Valley that's helping me fight.
Good.
Right now, my case is being transferred to El Paso. But the problem is, it still has to go to Janesville, Wisconsin, which is stupid because that's where the last several appeals have gone to, and they have said the same thing. Okay, we accept responsibility, but we give you 0 rating. It's very simple. Pulmonary issues is a 60% rating.
So are you 0% just for that rating, or
for that rating? But I have peripheral neuropathy from the waist down. So, like, I saw my podiatrist here in Conroe about 2 weeks ago, and he's, okay, screwdriver, it hurts, it's pointy. He's poking my foot with whatever. I'm just sitting there going, yeah, I don't feel it. He goes, yeah, we got a problem. Yeah, you're right. When I saw the doctor in Palm Desert, California, I remember asking the guy, I said, where are you originally from? He said, oh, I'm originally from Iraq. And I'm like, awesome. He didn't expect me to be that responsive. I'm like, hey, I'm happy you're here. And he looked at me, he said, Michael, he said, I'm not the expert in neuropathy. He said, but I've looked up who you have letters from. They are the experts. I'm not going to go against what the experts are saying. That man was tremendous. When I had to go back for the pulmonary, the first visit, this is how smart the VA is. I told the lady on a pulmonary function test, I will end up blacking out and I will basically have convulsions. She didn't believe me. After the first test, I black out and I'm just shaking like an earthquake. We wait 5 to 10 minutes, do it again, same thing happens. And she says, let me go call the home office. And they said, okay, we're done. The VA in their infinite wisdom wants a whole nother test done. And I refuse. And that is one of the problems, because they're going, now you're refusing the test.
Right.
I'm like, do you jackasses not understand that when I black out and my whole body, I'm shaking like this, that hurts me. I'm in pain for a couple of days afterwards, but they don't want to accept it. And again, they sent the paperwork on, well, we accept responsibility. Basically, they're saying I forgot the correct verbiage, but we accept responsibility, but we're still going to give you a 0 rating. Come to find out, the office in Janesville, Wisconsin cannot give ratings. Then why in the hell am I sending everything there? I don't understand it. I'm about ready to call my representative, Brady, here in Conroe, or this area, to see what he can do to help get this settled. Because this is 7.5 years of fighting this.
Yeah. So do you definitely feel like you're waiting for them? You know, it's the denial until you die. Is that what you're feeling like?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And they take forever to give an answer. Now, granted, they're dealing with, when you have one office dealing with several, like 20 different states, you get a lot of appeals in. It does take time. And again, I'm going to go back to the 22 veterans a day. I don't want anybody. So it hurts to hear that somebody has committed suicide. But for a fellow veteran, I told the veteran community in Palm Springs, if you need help, call me. I rearranged my laundry room so I had a 6-rack shelving system full of food. If a veteran needed food, all they had to do was call me. I would give it, no questions asked. And for the VA to treat people like this is so uncalled for. It hurts. And I've made this comment before, and I've gotten, some people have not liked it, and I really don't care what they think. It's about what I think. I can completely understand why somebody would commit suicide with the treatment the VA is giving. Because the VA is saying, you're not important enough to get the treatment right now. I remember a news story where a veteran called in for mental health and said, we can get you in next month. Not good enough. Now, is it going to overwhelm the system if they change it? Probably. But we've got to do better than what we're doing.
Yeah. So,
and granted, I'm here in Conroe, Texas, 40 miles north of Houston. In my little section of the area that I live in, what they call Foster's Ridge, and my little community of Autumn Creek, I've got like 3 or 4 disabled vets living here. I haven't met them yet, but we have our own Facebook page. I actually put out your announcement to them. Hopefully some of them have contacted you.
Thank you.
But we've got to make sure that we're there for everybody. And it's just like when I was in Palm Springs, I told Chief Reyes, let your officers know that if they need something to eat and they're running from call to call me. You can you know me, you can trust me. That if you need something I can help, I will. And I can't be there for everybody, but I can hopefully point you into the direction that you need to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that relates, going back to your question about the structure in the military. It's one of the things I remember my staff sergeant telling me when we were working on programs during when we were called up for the Go Forward. She said, Michael, it's not that you need to know everything, but you need to know where to go get it.
Mm-hmm.
What she was referring to is that when you create a program, you basically rob Peter to pay Paul, and that you copy this programming code over here to go to this new program. But how that relates in life is, I can't help you, but I can say, you know what, go see this person or that person, or here's what you can do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what we need more of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's perfect.
Box.
No, I was talking with a coworker today, and she was working with a spouse of a veteran, and the spouse was just having a really hard time at home. Especially with everything that's going on with Afghanistan, and bringing up a lot of stuff, not only for the veterans our era, but then also Vietnam veterans as well, right? And so she was explaining that that her husband was just having a really hard time, and whatever happened, it got to the point where he is starting to think about getting help from somebody, getting that assistance. And she's like, Pat, do you know anybody that he can talk to, or where he can go? And I'm thinking, well, I know a lot of people in the VA, but I don't know if I want to send him there, And I think that that's where we come in as veterans, and just say, hey, I'm here to listen. I'm not going to judge you. It doesn't matter. I've got an open ear, an open heart, and just tell me what's going on. And I think that it's funny because I have a couple really good buddies that I can just call up, and my dad was one of them too. That you just call up, and there's no judgment, and it's you check in and like, hey, how's it going? Oh, it's a really crappy day, and you have that person who understands what you've gone through. You have that person who's not going to judge you, and then is not going to try and feed you a bunch of pills. Right?
Yeah.
So I told my coworker, I said, hey, give him my personal cell phone number. We have very similar backgrounds in the Marine Corps, and just if he wants to reach out, there's a lot of people that do. And I think that there's a lot of veterans who don't know where to reach out to. They don't know. They might feel like they're on an island, and that's part of one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, is just to to bring this community together again and say, hey, I'm here. This is what I experienced. Tell us your story. Tell us how, if you're hurting, let somebody know. So,
and that's where we all fail, because all of us have different experiences and different knowledge, and we may be the same and that we share the same knowledge, but we don't always know who needs that knowledge.
Right.
There's no one central place to go without having to jump through hoops to find out what you need.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I live in Conroe. I'm 40 miles north of Houston. I've got Spring, the Woodlands, Willis. I've got, American Legion, 2 different posts here. I've got everything around me, which is great. I've got a lot of veterans, and this area is heavy in veterans. Mm-hmm. So I know that I can get that help. But there may be others around me that don't realize
mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a challenge for you. Let's come up with something that we can have where we have the names of doctors, therapists, whatever, that are for the veterans, that are not VA, that will they accept insurance? Will they somehow get the VA to pay for it or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And let's get where these people are known.
Mm-hmm.
So whether we have to send something out as a mailing to say, these are your resources, if we have a website, whatever it is, let's do it.
Mm-hmm. That's
I'm
great.
with you. I may be 1,600 miles from you, but 15 or whatever, but I will work with you. But that's something that we need. one of the problems that I had within the military and also in law enforcement was, I'll call it the BC syndrome. And the BC stands for somebody that I used to work with. And he was like, well, I have all the knowledge. I know what to do, but I'm not going to tell you because you might take my job. So I nicknamed it the BC syndrome. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are so afraid of losing their job.
Mm-hmm.
In any job that I've gone into, I've tried to learn every aspect of those I work with. Why? One, it makes my job easier. But two, if that person should be out of work for any length of time, I can do my best to jump in and try to do their job. I may mess it up, but at least I'm trying. I'm not there to take their job. So unfortunately, we all encounter people with job insecurities. And we have to get them to understand, like, I told this individual that I worked, this deputy, I said, look, I don't want your job. I just want to know how to do it. In the end, he was having to come to me for information because when the program got changed, I was the administrator on it and I knew what to do. You know, in some respects, he had to admit defeat, but we've got to get the information out there and to get people to understand that if you have that information, you need to share it. And whatever that entails, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's something we can work on.
Yeah.
So
that's a great idea.
You know, we need the support of a lot of people. So, and you know, one of the other things I thought of that, you know, on TV, I was having dinner watching TV, and METV, which is My Entertainment TV. And it's like Andy Griffith and all that stuff, which is what I grew up around. And Barney Fife, you know? And I thought, you know what, Patrick, we need a veterans TV, veterans entertainment television.
You know, there is one, right?
What's that?
There is one.
There is? How come I don't know about it?
So I get the ads all the time on Facebook. There's a couple, and I wouldn't watch it around my family or my kids. but it you know, it and that's one of the reasons why they created it. And I think it's actually called Vet TV.
I don't know. I see. That's again going back to somebody has the information, but not everybody does.
Yeah. You'll after this, you'll have to Google it and kind of see. And it's a paid subscription.
Well, see, I want it for free. I want it on on regular TV.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be paid because, as we both know, there's a lot of veterans that are not making it.
Right.
And to sit there and say you got to pay $9.99 or $19.99 a month is not going to work. So we need to see how we can get this for free for all veterans.
You know, it's interesting because there are a lot of veterans in the entertainment business. And, you know,
Gary Sinise.
Yes, Gary Sinise out here is, and what he's done across the country is just amazing. You know, Adam Driver was a Marine. You know, Adam Driver is Star Wars.
I still don't know.
He's one of the newer Star Wars characters, but you know, there's a lot of old time veterans and veterans you wouldn't even. A lot of people don't even know they're veterans. But it's, you know, to your point of getting something out there that's free and accessible to veterans, sharing resources, and you know, I think it's definitely needed. Everybody has little pieces of the puzzle, but nobody wants to put them together. And what does that look like? You know, that's the challenge for us, right?
Well, and the question is, why is it a challenge? Is it because people don't want to give up their little piece so that we can meld it all together and be, or is it because somebody might take responsibility? Well, look at what I did. Nah. See, my mindset is totally different. It's like, I will give you credit for where it's due. I remember working on one project in the sheriff's department, and they're like, well, look at what Michael did. I'm like, no, it wasn't me. It was me, but it was also all these other people. You give credit where it's due. And unfortunately, we live in a society it doesn't want to do that.
Yeah. What advice would you have for veterans and their families, that might be just getting out of the military or even have been out for a while?
Don't give up. Don't be afraid to ask. If anybody in any community should start putting you down for what you did or criticizing you, or like for Vietnam veterans, they were being called baby killers, walk away. Don't go back to them. Reach out to the veteran community, because there will be people that are there that can help you. And that's the important thing. We want you to know that you have support. And along with that support, we also need to make sure that you're doing everything you can, one, to stay safe, and two, to be employable. Because, one of the things I hear from people is these veterans want help, but they're not doing anything to help themselves. Granted, asking for mental health therapy is risky, because you don't want to be labeled, like in California, it's 5150, which is crazy under the California Penal Code. It's a 72-hour automatic hold in the jail. You don't want that on you. But people need to realize, if somebody says, I need help, I'm not suicidal, but I need help, that there are those of us around that can point them in the direction and get them in contact with the people that can help them. Whether it's mental health therapy, housing, food, whatever. As you know, from the Coachella Valley, we had the program that would collect dress clothes, so that we'd have for veterans to be able to go for job interviews. And that's, we need to make sure that we have something like that that's pretty much throughout the U.S. so that if a veteran needs something, they can get it. So I think the biggest thing I can convey is, don't be afraid to ask. Join the different groups on Facebook. If somebody is browbeating you to the point that you're not feeling good about yourself, either block that person or leave the group. But you're going to have more allies than not.
Yeah.
So
great advice.
I think that's the easiest thing to say.
Great advice. Well, Michael, appreciate your time. Is there any parting words of wisdom that you have that you'd like to share?
What is the Marines' motto? Never give up, or
Semper Fidelis.
I know, but what's in layman's terms? What does that mean?
Always faithful.
Always, yeah. Have faith in what you're doing. Don't listen to everybody around you, because everybody has an opinion. We all know that opinions are like buttholes. Everybody has one. Sorry. And, it's just a matter of not being afraid to reach out. And don't sequester yourself in your home or in your job to where you don't have friends. We all know that most of us come with the military that we are very much the introvert type, although we may not want to accept it. But we have to get out there and be around people and do the things that make you happy, that make you happy. For me, like, it's cooking. And when I can have a neighbor who's a true Texan go, man, that brisket you cooked was awesome.
Pretty good.
Oh, I'm on top of the world, so it just makes a difference.
Yeah.
I think we need to make sure we can have pointers to the different programs that can get the veterans into different jobs. And I know the food service industry is needing cooks, and tell you what, when you make it as a cook and you're really good at what you do, you don't ever have to worry about a job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just the advice would be look for the pointers and getting into certain, see what you can do,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
don't listen to your brain saying I can't.
Yeah.
Saying how can I?
Mm-hmm.
I had a supervisor who said you can, and I looked at him and said, "Watch me." He didn't like me
Yeah.
because I proved him wrong,
Mm-hmm.
which was a great thing. So I think that would be the advice is, get out of your brain. Don't listen to the negative thoughts that the brain can bring in of I can't,
Mm-hmm.
and know that you are worth something.
Mm-hmm.
And there is help out there if you need it. There are people out there that will listen. I'll listen. I don't care who you are.
Mm-hmm.
We may not know each other, but we're brothers and sisters
Mm-hmm.
through military service. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just don't lose faith,
Mm-hmm.
and know that there are people that around you that care for you. Sometimes you got to look more than 2 inches beyond your nose to see who they are.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
I don't know if that makes any sense to you,
No,
to
but it
anybody
does.
listening to this.
I'm sure it does. Yeah. And thank you for that. Really appreciate it. So, if anybody wants to reach out to you, how can they get in contact with you?
The easiest way is to go through my website, which is mikesinthekitchen.com. It's MikesintheKitchen.com. That's my cooking blog. There is the easiest way to get through to me. And I will answer, and I don't delay. I mean, it may be, a couple of hours, but I live on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, I am currently looking for a job. And, with that comes training and everything. So I may be delayed, but rest assured, I will get back with you.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I will put out there that, sorry, my phone just went off. I'm like, okay, I don't need to deal with it. Sorry about that. One of the things that I would love to have is any veteran who cooks. I would love to host them at my house to do a cooking video with them. Now, they have to pay their way here. I don't have the resources to pay. I'm not a millionaire. But, I have a saying in my cooking videos, food is what brings people together.
Mm-hmm.
And it truly is what can bring people together. I have 2 rules in my house: no politics, no religion, because that can divide everybody rather quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I want everybody to come in and have a great time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to have other veterans on my videos to say, hey, it's Mike's in the kitchen here, but guess what? I got a guest chef here.
Mm-hmm.
And put them on the spotlight. Because, Patrick, you never know what that one video can do for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Boost their self-esteem, and it could possibly get them a job.
Yeah.
You never know.
Mm-hmm.
Or somebody goes, I like how you do things on TV. Let's go talk.
Mm-hmm.
You never know. Hollywood may call. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I would love to have veterans. And I think the ultimate goal would be to get MREs and how to make them edible.
I don't know if you could really do that.
No, only if they had the freeze-dried strawberries. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't think there's enough spices in the world to fix those things.
You never know with me, though.
Yeah. It'd be. I can't wait to see that on your YouTube channel and your blog. So yeah.
Yeah. So I would love to have. Like I said, I'm 40 miles north of Houston. I'll go pick you up.
Mm-hmm.
Houston International Airport. Let you stay here at the house, and we'll cook.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll sit down at the table, and I'll invite people over. If you know people in the area, we'll invite them over, and we'll have a dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I would love to have a sponsor for all this, but I don't. So the money's coming out of my own pocket,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll make sure that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's to me, it's a way that people can go.
Mm-hmm.
They can just relax for a minute, be who they are, show their love for cooking, or if there may be a bartender that wants to do it, I'll take a bartender because I want to get into that aspect with my food blog. It's just, yeah, it's there. So if anybody, go to the website, mikesinthekitchen.com. On Instagram, it's TasteBudPS. On Facebook, it's Mike's in the Kitchen.
Awesome.
Any one of those platforms, you can get in touch with me.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Really appreciate it, Michael. So thank you so much for your time here. Really appreciate it. I know it's late out in Texas and do appreciate the time. So
yeah, I'm usually midnight for me.
Well, all right, Michael, thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate your time and all your words of wisdom. Thanks so much. Thank you for joining us tonight and hope you enjoy.